welcome to the Bodybuilding Dietitians podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today for what is yet again another episode. And as always, you're joined by your three hosts, Tiara, Jack, and Damien. We've got another juicy Q&A coming up for you today. So I'm going to throw this first question over to you guys. All right. This one asks, my libido has been 0 for the past year and test scores, they ain't good. Can I please get some advice? All right. I think this would be a very, just probably more relevant question to maybe pass over to two guys on the podcast. Because, not to toot my own horn, but my test levels, whenever I've had them tested, pardon the pun, in the past during preps, they've been pretty G. But for you guys, they might have been a little bit tanked. So, please, advice. People are asking for it.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I've had quite the journey myself with testosterone on blood tests. Like, I remember doing my first show ever, and afterwards, like, still a little bit in the dark around certain aspects of natural bodybuilding, and I think it's quite it hits you pretty hard afterwards, where like you don't recover straight away, and you can tell that the testosterone is still low. And I got it tested, and I was clinically low, and especially coming from a medical family, like it does probably get hyperbolized quite a lot in terms of the negative implications of that. And then moving on to my second prep, my testosterone it couldn't have gotten any lower. My total testosterone was like 1 nanomole per liter, which is, you can't, I don't even know if they can test in like 0.8 nanomoles per liter. I don't even know if that they get that specific, but it was low. Let's just say that. And then my more recent prep, I was still within the healthy range, which sure has partly due to the timeline of my prep, but I think also managing certain variables much better as well. So we can definitely speak to some aspects of natural testosterone here, and we're not going to touch on any medical stuff because that's for a doctor. We'd be kind of going outside of our scope of practice there. But the only thing I will say from a medical perspective is just make sure that you're testing the right variables in a blood test. So if you want to truly assess all aspects of your hormonal status, then you don't just want to get your total testosterone assessed. You want to also assess other variables which may be influencing the production of testosterone, and almost trying to assess at what point in the cycle or in the chain of hormone production is testosterone being influenced, since there's many different areas at which it could be disrupted per se. So like, for example, a concept of energy balance in a comp prep or energy availability is likely to influence testosterone differently compared to if your hypothalamus or pituitary is influenced. So going back to the question itself, so there are a number of ways nutritionally and from a lifestyle perspective that if someone came to me for a consult, like, I would essentially just run through a number of different areas to one, see if there's any deficits initially, and then secondly, try and address aspects through lifestyle change or supplementation as well. So one would be sleep. So just ensuring that they're sleeping really well, getting the best sleep possible, and ensuring that their duration and quality of sleep is really good. Sure, sometimes that's not possible, but it definitely could be influencing testosterone, that's for sure. Second to that would be, these are in no particular order, so I won't say second to that. But additionally, stress. So stress is a big one. And again, much easier said than done to just not be stressed. But the body, like, there's lots of different stresses as well. So trying to alleviate mental stress as well as excessive amounts of physical stress, because both of those can influence, well-being as a whole, and will indirectly influence your testosterone as well. So we also have just body composition in general. This kind of can influence your hormones on either end of the curve, where if your body fat is too high, then that's going to negatively impact your testosterone. And if your body fat is too low, just like in comp prep, it's also going to put you into a position where you can't effectively produce enough testosterone. So you ideally want to be in a bit of a sweet spot there, which fortunately that sweet spot is pretty damn large. Like, you can throw a dart in that range pretty easily. And so as long as you're not maybe sub 10% body fat, I would say, is a broad range. But even then, there are people who are maintaining, like athletes who are maintaining probably sub 10% body fat and have good testosterone. So there definitely is a genetic influence there, or maybe an adaptation variable where maybe you can, if you adapt to it, you can maintain that body composition without deleterious effects. But that's another component too, is genetics. Like, unfortunately, maybe your genetics just don't support the best testosterone levels. And maybe if the individual in question looks at their father or brother or grandfather, like maybe there's been similar trends for them as well. And just like people can be outliers in terms of having very high testosterone, the same goes for having lower testosterone as well. And that brings me to diet. So diet's obviously a huge component, and like we want to cover our bases from a nutritional perspective, and there are definitely some nutrients that do influence testosterone more significantly than others. So zinc would be one, magnesium would be one as well, vitamin D, and just being healthy and nourished in general and consuming sufficient calories. Because if you are dipping in and out of a deficit, like if you're maybe yo-yo dieting or binging and restricting, even though your energy balance across the week might be appropriate, like you're having a consistent energy balance across the week or across the month or across 6 months is very different to putting your body in that sort of stress state by having low days, then high days, and etc., or overfeeding and then underfeeding. So yeah, that would be me kind of setting the foundation for this. But maybe we can also touch on supplementation as well. But I'll see if either of you have any points to add.
Yeah, well, Jack, that was incredibly comprehensive. So thank you very much. And that is fascinating. I actually wasn't aware that you had some blood tests drawn in your most recent comp prep back at the beginning of 2024. And that is really interesting that, from your previous to that comp prep in 2021, where, you did a chronic dieting phase for over 6 months. I believe you lost well over 10 kilos during that time. I certainly remember that your sleep was significantly compromised. But even in this most recent prep, because you were actually maintaining a bit closer to your stage weight, you only dieted for a number of weeks, but dare do I say it was probably still very aggressive, but you got the job done. But that's really fascinating to know that, as a consequence, you could say positively, your testosterone levels, they were still within a normal physiological range. And I'm really curious though, like when it comes to the feels that you get in a prep, and obviously those feels I can imagine that you guys might, face when you have low testosterone levels, right? Did you feel different during that most recent comp prep? Did you feel as though you had as much of a dip in libido or your drive or your energy because your testosterone on paper objectively was higher, like, did you feel the benefits of that?
Yeah, it's hard to say with the gap because it would have been a 3-year gap between that. But I definitely did feel some of the deleterious effects of a comp prep, like in terms of food focus and appetite, even across a 3 to 4 week period. And I felt even the symptoms of lower energy, like in the training and outside of training as well. But nowhere near, I can very confidently say nowhere near to the same extent. And I would say that I also bounced back much faster as well, which I think is a reminder to competitors and coaches that you don't want to unnecessarily extend the time in which someone's holding that conditioning as a bodybuilder. So if you can dip in, dip out more efficiently, I think you'll do a better job of restoring or maintaining a slightly higher hormonal status or bouncing back a little bit faster as well.
Mm-hmm. And can you guys, as guys, please just clarify for the ladies out there, because I think that so many people are under the impression that testosterone is like just directly, obviously it is linked, but I mean, it's not like just a one-on-one with like, oh, low testosterone levels, low libido. Like, what does that actually mean for a male? What does that actually feel like when people talk about, oh, I've completely lost my libido, my testosterone's absolutely tanked? Because it can't just be about sex drive. It can't just be about let's get it on. All right. It can't just be about like, yeah, let's just freaking do it. Like what else is testosterone really negatively impacting in your guys' lives? And what does that actually feel like for a dude?
Mm.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, even for me, like coming in, having a most recent experience around libido and I guess that dropping through prep, and I didn't really know what it was going to feel like as well, being my first comp prep. And, you hear about all these things around, your testosterone levels will drop and libido can change throughout comp prep. And I definitely felt that start to change. And throughout comp prep, especially towards the latter end, and I guess still coming out of prep within the recovery phase now, still, I guess, working through that and still having very low libido, even multiple weeks post prep. And I guess that's one. It is one thing, but it's also the drop in energy levels that you get from the drop in testosterone as well. Like, sure, it's the libido as one, but it does come around with energy levels there too. And I guess then even if we look at it from a muscle building perspective, and I guess the influence that testosterone levels have on muscle production and muscle growth, like that's why I guess there is like that common, state around how the post-show period may not be the most optimal period to gain muscle and to start to improve because of these hormone markers still coming into place and because of them still being slightly, disrupted from being low during prep. So yes, whilst it is definitely one aspect of libido being related to testosterone, it's multiple other factors as well. So
I'm really glad that you made that point because, some people, they could make the argument of like, oh, well, I don't want to do it anyway. I'm not really interested right now. It's like, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but dude, your health, right? Because we have to think, just like what Damien said, like, what is testosterone actually involved in the human body, right? It's integral for our bone mineral density, for our skeletal muscle health, for building muscle, for maintaining muscle mass, right? So that's absolutely imperative, whether or not, you obviously have a high sex drive or not, even for your cognition and your memory. And yeah, it's just, it's really, really important. So that's why it's very necessary to be paying attention to these sort of things. And again, like, it's about what is normal for you as well. So actually having some blood work drawn, when you're actually in the improvement season or, in maintenance phases and etc., probably times outside of prep, to have an idea of, okay, like, what are my normal physiological ranges for when I feel really good and I just have general drive in life. And then, during preps, it goes without saying, it's if you're a natural athlete, then it's going to be probably, in most cases, below normal physiological ranges, but by how much? So if you're actually tracking these parameters, then you can really say, okay, me versus me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point to touch on because often people will get symptoms of lower testosterone as they age. And it can be one of those circumstances as well where low testosterone is just the easiest thing to grasp hold of and be like, okay, let's just start testosterone therapy or TRT. And one, because that's shown a lot on social media, like it's very common to see people on TRT or think that people are on TRT, but they're actually on much, much higher doses than TRT. And then people sort of link, oh, this guy says he's on TRT, but he's actually on 5 times TRT. And you link his results with TRT. But the goal of TRT is really just to put you into the healthy physiological, like normal physiological range of testosterone. So don't be fooled by some of these people who say they are running TRT when it's far from it. And that's another conversation altogether. But I think, make sure that you do address every other lifestyle factor that's within your control before you go down the route of, resolving low testosterone medically. At least that would be my suggestion or my recommendation. And also on top of that, it becomes an interesting one when it regarding the treatment of low testosterone. Are you addressing the symptoms or are you addressing the actual objective reading of your low testosterone through a blood test? Because it's almost like the chicken and the egg scenario in DEXA scans when someone gets a scan on their lower back and they're like, oh, I have no back pain, but apparently I have a bulged disc. Or vice versa, they've got back pain, but their scan looks completely normal. And when it comes to testosterone as well, like if someone has like low testosterone in a blood test, but yet symptom wise they're completely fine, like is there any need to address that? Or vice versa, maybe that their testosterone technically is within a normal physiological range, it might just be towards the lower end, but they have some of these symptoms. So it is a bit of a gray area in terms of the treatment, and that's why I think addressing as many things from a lifestyle and nutritional perspective as possible is important before going into other mechanisms. From a financial perspective, but maybe some of these aspects as well. If you do it for long enough, it's hard to not do it eventually as well. Like you may be stuck using that treatment method once you're on it. Not all of them, but maybe some of them. Again, I don't want to speak too much about the medical aspect, and we're not trying to diagnose or treat or give objective guidance here on the podcast. Yeah.
What I also think is really fascinating about, these blood test results is that, once again, like, context is required, and you can only compare your test results. Again, these friggin' puns about test and tests, but you can only compare your results to your results. There's absolutely no point in, saying, hey, I don't understand. Like he has more muscle mass than me, yet he has lower testosterone levels than me, or vice versa. Because I believe that you've been in this position before, Jack, as well, where when you've had blood test results taken, right, at peaks of your journey where you've been very, very muscular, right, just like you are now. But we're still talking about years ago. But when within that normal physiological range, you're still within the range, but you're on the lower end. But then someone else might be out there touting that they have higher testosterone levels, yet they don't have that same level of muscle mass. So we know that, like, so it's not just testosterone equals, like, you're super duper bulky, because it's about your cell's affinity for actually grabbing hold of that testosterone as well. So even if you're on the lower end of the normal physiological range, you actually might have really high affinity for actually uptaking that testosterone, coincided with all of the other lifestyle factors too, like how consistently are you actually training? Are you sleeping well? Is your diet in check? Do you consume enough protein? Are you you're not nutrient deprived or micronutrient deficient, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, there are some other aspects of nutrition which I did want to go into a little bit more depth in. So one of them would be dietary fat intake, like ensuring that you have sufficient dietary fat. And again, it's hard to list numbers in these circumstances, but I would, if you wanted to be in a very safe position with dietary fat, I would just say 1 gram per kilo of body weight, and also the quality of your fats being sufficient as well. So prioritizing plant-based fats over animal fats. And also, in addition to that, like avoiding things that we know does disrupt testosterone as well. And probably the number one thing that comes to mind at the moment is alcohol. So don't drink alcohol excessively. That should go whether or not you're invested in testosterone. I don't think alcohol, still yet to find one good use for alcohol, except maybe certain psychological aspects. But physiologically, I think we can quite confidently say now it doesn't have any benefits. There was, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but just the prospect of resveratrol. Is there enough resveratrol in wine to
just get out to the grocery store and buy yourself some good old purple grapes.
Yeah,
all right. I believe the same amount of resveratrol that you would find in your standard glass of wine anyway, it's equivalent to like 150 grams of grapes. So just eat the grapes.
Yep. You heard it here first.
I'd take grapes over a glass of wine any day. All right. Eat them with a steak, eat them with anything.
So yeah, those would be some additional points. And then we have supplementation as well. So I guess I look at supplementation in two different areas. Like one would be, what are the nutrients in our diet that we know are important for testosterone? And could they be raised up to an even more optimal level? So, vitamin D is one. Like, sure, vitamin D is a little hard to obtain through the diet. But, and for example, myself, like I try not to actually go out. I have sensitive skin and I don't want to get skin cancer in Australia. So I go, if I do go walking, which I do every day with the dogs, like I go at around 5. So vitamin D exposure is lower there. And so I supplement with vitamin D just to put myself into a very optimal range. And same goes for zinc and magnesium as well. Like I've got plenty of sources of zinc and magnesium in my diet, yet I choose to supplement with those to raise my levels even higher into a fully optimal range, especially for people who exercise and train regularly and train hard and test their recovery capacities. I think those are two supplements or 3 supplements which I think are quite useful. And then we have like other supplements on the side which are a bit hazy in terms of literature. They may be a little bit more circumstantial in terms of whether someone should or shouldn't take them. And that would probably be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But I guess bottom line is what I would say on those things like ashwagandha and even other like trace minerals like boron. I don't think you're going to be missing out on, like, put it this way, you're not, your testosterone isn't not high because you're missing out on those essentially. So they're not going to be absolute game changers. I think everything that we've discussed prior to this is more important than those other supplements. And the reason I say circumstantial is because someone who has maybe low testosterone or who's like struggling with infertility, like maybe there will be a slightly more noticeable increase. But then you have to keep taking that supplement as well, maybe to get the benefit. So it's almost like a false positive. It doesn't sort of pretend, if someone's, let's say, super overweight and stressed, then they're going to get more benefit from coming down in terms of body fat and relieving their stresses rather than using ashwagandha. So which will only have a temporary effect. Yeah. So I think that maybe, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Jack. I guess while you're on the topic of supplementation, I think we should, I guess, acknowledge you go down the supplement aisle, you go to just a supplement store, and they have the testosterone boosters there as the branding. And, I guess a very, very common question is, do they work or not? Is it worth the money? And I guess really the only real supplement booster that you're going to be getting in terms of if you're really wanting to raise your testosterone or hormone levels are going to be mainly and more so those anabolic products, and they're not things that you can usually buy within a supplement store. So the short answer is, if you are, I guess, looking at more of those, legal testosterone boosters that are from the supplement store, they're very, very unlikely to work. It's more beneficial to put your financial investment into these other things that Jack's alluded to and Tierra's alluded to as well, around, diet, nutrition, lifestyle factors, stress, those sorts of things, rather than going down the rabbit hole of these other testosterone boosters, we could say.
Yeah. Like if someone's spending, let's say, $100 a month, which isn't uncommon on testosterone boosting supplements, then I would, and let's say they're getting 6 hours of sleep. So not crap sleep, but not great sleep either. I would so much rather, let's say $100 a month for a year is $1,200. I'd buy something to invest in from a sleep perspective, like an aircon for your room, or a really nice mattress, or there's that 8 Sleep product, which basically cools down your mattress or heats it up. So thinking tangentially like that as to what other variables could influence your hormonal status.
Isn't that just crazy? When an issue like this strikes, people will invest like 97% plus of their time and their energy and their money and their effort and their cognition into these things that are probably only going to provide maybe a 1 to 3% benefit anyway. Right. So it always comes back to good old lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, take care of thyself, right? And libido will be off the charts, baby. You heard it here first.
Well, a little shout out for us as well. Like Damien and I regularly work with people who are invested in raising their testosterone. I'm sure you have occasionally, Tierra, but maybe not on quite the same frequency as Damien and I. So if people do want to check out any of our services, we have it all linked down below, whether it's a consultation or weekly coaching.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So that was a fantastic answer to a fully loaded question. Pardon the pun. All right, moving on to this next question. It says, sodium and water management in peak week. Should I adjust it or just keep it consistent to prep?
Yeah, another in-depth question. So quite a lot to discuss here, but at the same time, I don't think we need to overcomplicate it either. So essentially the goal, there's a number of roles of sodium and water from a broad kind of brushstroke perspective. And to put it quite simply, we want to maximize or prioritize intracellular fluid, and we want to minimize extracellular fluid. And when you think of a fully peaked physique, like they obviously look lean and striated, their muscles are pushing up against the skin, and you just don't have that sort of watery look. They're looking tight. There's a number of adjectives and vocabulary in bodybuilding which don't have strict definitions, but I think if you know, like hard, tight, full, and pumped or vascular, all those sorts of ones. And that's usually associated with someone being peaked really well, and obviously having sufficient muscularity and being lean as well. There's no point peaking using this peak week management if someone's not lean in the first place, because it won't change. It won't change anything. So yeah, that kind of sets the scene. We want to bias intracellular and minimize extracellular. So essentially, both sodium and water can assist with this. But the thing is, if you go too high on sodium or have acute fluctuations in sodium, essentially your renal hormones will do their job and will bring you back to a more normal range anyway, or more homeostatic range anyway. Like the renal system is very good at that. So it just may not happen as acutely. If you throw enough things at it, like things, you can still end up in a poor position. So that's where I think people go wrong, where they do very, very acute changes of a large magnitude within close proximity to their peak or the stage. And that's when the body can't self-regulate and they end up looking worse. And whether that's reducing or increasing, but most of the time it's increasing, or they just do something to completely screw up that balance between intracellular and extracellular fluid. So I would personally avoid doing anything crazy with sodium and literally just keeping it consistent. Like you want enough sodium to essentially assist with carbohydrate storage and having appropriate blood pressure and being able to get a pump, since sodium will help with blood pressure and getting a pump essentially, which is what you want on stage. And that's why often having maybe the same or a little bit more sodium on show day can be very beneficial for that reason. And the role of water and its involvement in carbohydrate storage is also of key importance here as well, because for every gram of carbohydrates, it's around 3 to 4 mils or grams of water that is stored alongside that. And of course, our muscles are 70-ish +% water too. So again, in order to maximize the efficiency and the proficiency of carbohydrate storage, like we want to have sufficient hydration. And sure, you can drink too much and you can basically get hyponatremia, which is where you dilute your electrolytes and it's serious health consequences. But you have to drink a lot of water and have a low electrolyte intake in order to achieve that. It's a little difficult to drink too much water. And I would say there's definitely a lot of people who just drink an unnecessary amount of water. So I think keeping that relatively consistent or slightly maybe higher than usual, just to kind of cover your bases around increased carbohydrate. Because I'd much rather someone be drinking a little bit, I won't say too much, but a little more water and it be a little unnecessary rather than drink not enough water, that's for sure. So I'll let you guys add to some of these points.
So it's interesting because I'm under the impression that if you're doing a prep right, like that final peak week, the primary thing that you just want to be focusing on is just alleviating any stressors, just catching your breath, letting your heart rate come down a little bit, in the days prior to actually getting on stage. You do want your heart rate to be up, to a certain degree just before you actually walk out on the stage, because Jack, you made that really good point of actually raising your blood pressure, getting a pump. But I'm under the impression that like you should be near like 97, 99% ready, in like the 1 to 2 weeks before you actually even get on stage. You should be in the gym like after you've had, a few meals in your system, right, that have carbohydrates and sodium in them, and you're fairly well hydrated, right? And when you're in the gym and you're getting a pump, you see your physique come to life. You're like, whoa, okay, like I'm looking pretty wicked right now, and like, you get those little compliments from people. It's like, chuck a tan on that thing, right? Like you should be waking up in those days coming into the show to be like, yeah, I could probably like step on stage today and be really proud and be really confident with the physique that I'm presenting. And what's happening in those days when it comes to hydration and food, right? It's all very, very consistent, right? So if you are looking good in those days coming up to the show, why mess with it? Why dramatically change things on that one show day or in that final week because you're peaking? So in most cases, you're better off, actually keeping things far more on the consistent side rather than, just flipping all of your diet and your hydration and your protocols completely on its head. Because in more cases, rather than not, people they make some silly mistakes, right? But also not making any kind of very rash decisions on show day either, because you have to remember, when you're backstage, one, it's generally very air conditioned in these show day venues, right? And people are backstage, they're just kind of laying on their back, in a robe or something. And then it's all right, cool, you're going to be on stage in X amount of minutes. Some people are under the impression that they can just get up off the floor. If you're a chick, put on your heels, grab a resistance band, do 10 reps of some bicep curls and be cool, all right, I'm ready to go. I think people actually giving themselves adequate amount of time to actually properly pump up, because some people are oh God, I'm flat on show day. It's no, dude, you just need to get a pump. You need to get warm. And then another thing is that actually at these venues, if you could actually get yourself maybe outside for a moment, I totally recognize this is not always possible, but we're very fortunate, at least here in Queensland, Australia, the Sunshine State. A lot of these venues, like the Sleeman Center or venues at the Sunshine Coast, etc., they have areas where you can actually get outside. So if you are a competitor competing at a venue that you can step outside, not just to get some fresh air into your lungs and some natural light into your eyes, but if you can get yourself in the sun, you're kind of like a bit of a lizard. If you can go out there and get a bit of a pump in the sun, whoa, does that bring the physique to life? The vascularity starts coming out, you're warm, that assists with blood flow. But yeah, actually getting a proper pump on show day, that is just imperative. That's imperative. And also, so again, people don't make any rash decisions, but for they get up off the floor, they start doing a few reps, they're oh, I'm flat, and then they I don't know, they eat half a bag of rice cakes, or they down a bunch of salt, or they drink a liter of Gatorade, expecting it for it to happen instantaneously. It's important to give it a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Damien is a useful case study here again, where we didn't do anything crazy. Again, as I said earlier, we essentially just recognized the roles that water and sodium have in the context of peaking. We didn't try and do anything to overly disrupt physiology, because again, your renal hormones will essentially come into play and bring things back to a homeostatic range. And then if you do that in conjunction with throwing a lot of other variables out of whack, that's when you start to look worse. Your body looks stressed. It puts you into a stress state. And so again, the goal of sodium is to really just keep it relatively consistent. We don't recommend any sort of drastic increases and then restriction of sodium. So we don't recommend a cut or a load of sodium, but using it strategically to maybe influence your blood pressure on show day, and which doesn't require a huge amount whatsoever. And again, these are all nuanced variables that we discuss with our athletes in terms of their peak week plans and peak week preparation. And same goes with, again, water as well. We want the appropriate amount of water to load carbohydrates effectively to keep the athlete hydrated, performing well, keeping their electrolytes in check too, and replenishing what they lose in training, especially if you're competing in the summer in Australia. You are going to lose a decent amount of fluid, especially if you're also maybe doing some steps outside or cardio outside as well. And essentially, as Tiara said, if you're ready, almost ready, 1 or 2 weeks out, you essentially want to keep that look going and keep things consistent rather than tripping at the finish line and coming in like a watery mess, or being having hyponatremia and risking your health for a bodybuilding show, which just isn't worth it.
I think the biggest mistake that you could make when it comes to sodium and hydration is restricting yourself. Not only is that going to dramatically compromise your look, you will absolutely look flat. You will majorly struggle to get a pump, but you will be up there on that stage and you will be trying to flex your heart out, but it won't look super duper impressive, unfortunately. But you could also suffer from some cramps as well. It's not going to be a fun experience in the slightest. But I think something to definitely pay attention to, though, is the time of the day that you're actually on stage. right? So let's say, for example, right, you really notice as a competitor that your physique really comes to life in the late afternoon because you've had liters of fluid in your system, you've had 2 to 3 meals, that's the time that you generally train, right? And that's like, wow, this is a really good look. But let's say that, it's Saturday morning and you're going to be the first on stage at 9 a.m., right? Those are under very different conditions. But on a standard day, you don't have liters of fluid in your system at 9 a.m. You don't usually get a pump at 9 a.m. You don't usually have 2 or 3 meals in your system at 9 a.m. So that's where you obviously need to pre-plan ahead with your coach, right? And actually have these discussions on, okay, how are we maybe going to manipulate your actual show day? And obviously maybe the day prior when you're really perhaps loading up with some more carbohydrates to make sure that, we can really bring a physique that looks like it has life in it in the earlier portions of the day. So that's where, of course, you might drink a little bit more fluid than usual. Maybe you're going to have a meal or two earlier than usual if you're actually going to be on stage in the very early hours.
Yeah, no, I think we covered that well. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
Great.
there is, maybe final aspect, there is going to be a lot of, and I would say maybe more so to carbohydrates here, less so to sodium and water, but there will be a lot of individuality with how someone responds. Again, I say more so, at least with athletes that I prepared, like less individuality associated with sodium and water, which makes a lot of sense. More individuality when it comes to carbohydrate responsiveness and how many carbohydrates they may need to fill out, etc.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So we are coming up, on about over 40 minutes of this podcast, right? We've answered 2 questions, but they've been incredibly in depth. So how about you guys say that we finish off with our favorite segment of something that we learned this week?
Sounds good.
So Jack, I'm going to chuck it over to you. What did you learn this past week?
So I learned, mine seemed to be quite home or domestic related. So last week, I think, or one of the more recent ones was around grass growing. And then this week was actually something around cleaning pots and pans, because I don't use Teflon anymore in terms of pots and pans. Like I try to avoid the non-stick cookware. So I use stainless steel or cast iron. Lately, I've been using more stainless steel, but they are a bit of a challenge to basically keep clean because naturally things burn onto them, or if you leave them for half a second too long, like you'll end up with something on the bottom. So I realized that the mixture of bicarb and vinegar, if you heat that up to a light boil and just let it cool, then it works much better than kind of scrubbing. You can scrub for hours on end and have no impact on not just the stuff stuck to it, but also just like the general residue on the side of a pan. Like it might be slightly discolored, but yeah, the mixture of bicarb and vinegar works really well for that. So quite handy.
The more you know. We got storm birds, we got good old green grass growing in the backyard, and we're cleaning pots and pans.
Now he's been domesticated. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Damien, what did you learn this past week?
Well, I had the luxury. I shouldn't say the luxury. I've moved house this past weekend, and it has been challenging to say the least with family and kids and work and all that sort of thing. But aside from that, I was given the task or the job of driving the moving truck. We hired out a truck, and it was a 3-ton little truck. It's not necessarily a van, it is more so of a truck. And I had driven one before, but it was more so, I guess, relearning or having that experience of what it is to drive a truck and, to navigate that around. And, you can't necessarily cut corners in a moving truck or in a 3-ton truck. And learned that pretty quickly, and going around roundabouts and all that sort of thing, and being in the correct lanes. And that was definitely again, whilst I'd done it before, it was many years ago. Funnily enough, when we'd moved previously, but really learning that experience, and then going back into the luxury of my usual car was very nice, and being able to speed around a little bit easier than in a big truck. And also reminding, I guess, when you are driving in a car, you're going past a truck, and you don't really think about it overtaking, and it's a bit more demoralizing when you are actually in the truck and your foot is to the floor and you're only going about 30 to 40 k's. So
it's crazy, isn't it? I remember when I moved into my apartment at the beginning of the year, I also hired myself a truck. because I was like, I'm Miss Independent, I'll do it myself, right? But yeah, this was the first time I'd ever driven a truck in my life. One, they're ridiculously easy to hire. Like it's like $100, and you just show up, and they just like give you a 30-second tutorial, like this is how you open up the back and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, a truck, like the biggest thing besides the vehicle is the fact that like the steering wheel, it's like on your lap, right? It's not in front of you. So that's the thing that you need to get used to immediately. It's like the steering wheel, you're like, whoa. It's like over my legs. It's nuts. And I know how high you are up off the ground, but you're just like, you just got to do it. You're just like, all right, we're doing this.
You're almost like falling over the top of the steering wheel. It's one so big and the cab is so small. It's an experience, that's for sure.
And I know exactly what you mean in the sense of like, yeah, pedal to the metal, right? Like your foot is fully down, but if you're trying to go up hills and bridges, you just have the windows rolled down. You're just waving out to the other people. You're just like, yeah, you go past. I'm taking my time and driving a truck.
What did you learn though, Tiara?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I'm still in the process of learning something. I'm not sure how many people are watching on YouTube right now. And maybe that's a nice little plug. By the way, guys, TBD, we are on the tubes. So if you have not subscribed yet, please do. But yes, this is not just on audio format through podcast, but we are on video format as well through YouTube. It's probably not super evident on the video, but maybe if I come a little bit closer.
It's pretty evident.
I am still in the learning process of like, how long does it actually take to recover from a black eye? So very happy to report I did not engage in any violence. However, about 5 days ago, I was out kite surfing and I had a little bit of a collision with my kiteboard because, my feet came loose from the board. I got swept up in a big wave. I was trying to gain control of the kite. I went super womaning across the ocean, crashed. And then I, got up, tried to collect myself. And I was like, where's my board? There it is. My board crashed.
Board found you.
It sure did, baby. And like it crashed right into the corner of my eye. And I felt a bit of a bonk, and like immediately it started to kind of swell up and I felt a bit of a bump, but I just kept kite surfing for the rest of the afternoon. But then I came in to the beach and, one of the guys helped me land the kite. And he's like, oh, Terry, you've got a bit of something there on the corner of your eye. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like an hour ago or so, like the board, it actually hit me in the head, but it wasn't bleeding or anything. But it's really fascinating, guys, because where it actually hit me in like the very, very corner of my eye socket, that's the place where like immediately it started kind of swelling up and it got quite like blue and purple within that like kind of following hours. But then like the next day, that bit's completely gone down. But now like the bruising has spread across the rest of my eye. So like my whole eyelid is purple. The underside of my eye, for I don't know why, is also purple. But it just looks like I should be like, in the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something. But it's quite hilarious. It doesn't hurt at all. It just looks really, really funky. So yeah, there you go. I believe in a previous episode we were talking about, the health benefits of eating red meat in moderation. And thankfully, I'm still having my kangaroo every single day, so iron stores are in check.
Just put some arnica cream on it.
I've put arnica cream on it, all that stuff, but I think it's just a matter of time. But yeah, I'm definitely learning like how long does it take to recover from a black eye? Because this is like 5 days now, and I'm tip top with all the things to do with lifestyle and taking care of thyself.
I reckon
but
it
it's
might
still
be
very
maybe
dark.
associated with the vascular system around the eye compared to other areas of the body. Yeah, that would be my guess.
Exactly. I just keep blinking.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you got to stop.
Oh man. But I don't know, maybe we'll be back again in 7 days time and we'll see, is it still black or, obviously it's going to start turning like some sort of yellowy, orangey green. So I'll have to just clarify. No, I do not have jaundice.
Yeah. Except jaundice is the eyeball.
Oh, but again, it's same vicinity.
Yeah.
Same area. Yeah, same.
There we go. All right, guys. So thank you very much for listening to today's episode. We appreciate it. Again, we are on YouTube. We are on all podcast networks. So we would greatly appreciate it if you would please, like and subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. There's always options, to leave us a bit of a comment, ask us some questions. We're always putting up some polls over on the Bodybuilding Dietitians Instagram. If you guys want to get in contact there, ask us some questions that we can maybe address on future episodes. But apart from that, thank you again, for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you later.